Do you remember Nik Plugins? If you're of a certain age, then you probably will. But did you know they're still around? Join me today as we have a fresh look at Nik Plugins. So you might have been, like me, surprised that Nik Plugins were still around. I used them back in the sort of early 2000s. I believe they were first developed in the 1990s, but I certainly used them from the mid-2000s onwards. And they were really useful tools, especially in the days before we had Apple's Aperture and, of course, Adobe's Lightroom. But I didn't realise they're still around, and they were bought by DxO back in 2017, and DxO have been quietly developing them. And today I want to have a little look and see how good they are. This is going to be very much a first impressions. I've not used them before. Well, I've not used them for 15 years at least, so it's going to be a really intriguing first look at the refreshed Nik Plugins. Now, if you've been following me, you'll know that DxO have kindly given me a discount code for all their products. You can get 15% off if you use my discount code that I'll leave in the description below. So without further ado, let's actually jump into Lightroom first of all, and we're going to round trip an image that I took last week from Lightroom into the 4 Nik plugins that I mentioned and see what we can do and have a little reminisce about these plugins, because I've not used them for a long time and I'm quite intrigued on how well they've been developed. Let's get into Lightroom. So I haven't used Nik Plugins for a very long time. Certainly when they were Google, probably back about 10-15 years is the last time I used them. So it's going to be interesting to have a little look at them today, see how they've progressed under DxO. And to do that, we're actually going to round trip them from Lightroom. One of the beauties of the Nik plugins is that you can round trip from both Lightroom and Photoshop, or you can use them on an individual basis on their own. So we'll get started, and the image I'm going to use is this one of the Angel of the North that I took last week whilst testing my new drone. And if you haven't seen that video about the Air 3S, I'll leave a link in the description below for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click and we're going to edit in, and the first one we'll have a look at is Nik's Analogous Efex. Now, as I've said, I'm not going to look at all of them today. I'm just going to look at 4 of the most useful ones as far as I'm concerned, and that will be Analogous Efex, Silver Efex, Color Efex and Viveza. So we will open it up with the Lightroom adjustments, and there we have the image in Analogous Efex. And as you can see, we've got this really handy little slider thing here that will allow us to see the before and after. So we'll leave that in the middle for the moment. On the left here, we have a lot of presets. And the idea of Analog Efex is, as its name suggests, is to try and mimic the look, the film look of different film types that we had back in the day, and we have lots of presets to actually sort of do that. For example, this one here, I'm sure the analog film photographers amongst you will remember when you've accidentally fogged some film or something like that, you'll get this fogging effect on the side of the film like that. So that's quite an interesting one. I'm pretty sure that's not one that I would use on a regular basis. Classic camera we have here, that's a very much more subtle look, and I quite like that. Definitely like that. And I think if you zoom in as well, it tends to add a bit of grain, film style grain. Yes, it does. You can actually see there's a slight graininess to it, which you would expect to see on a film based image. Let's go back to full screen here. Have a look at more of these presets. Classic camera 4, this is quite a dramatic one. I'm not sure I would use that one. It's kind of like a bleach bypass effect on that. Very dramatic. But there's lots and lots of presets here. Double exposure, we've all done this before, forgot to wind on and actually shot again. Motion, quite interesting if you are doing these shots down in subways where you want to get some motion on the train and stuff like that. But yeah, there's lots and lots of presets here that you can use, all sort of harking back to the days of film and filters that we might have used and stuff like that. But of course you can actually also adjust each of these presets on their own. Let's go back to a sort of more generic looking one. Just go to this antique blur one here. That gives you that old style image as if it's been scanned from a very old print. But you've got lots of different controls over here. You can control exactly how it looks. So for example here, brightness can bring up and down the brightness. You can add some contrast. You've got local adjustments here, an elliptical control. That's quite interesting. You can actually define the ellipse and turn it around. And you've got all the actual controls here from the right hand side. I remember this, I was always very impressed with this back in the Google days, how you could micro adjust the little areas. Now of course we can do that very easily in Lightroom and indeed Photolab 9 these days, but if you're using these as a standalone app, they're very, very useful to do micro controls. Down here we have non-destructive edits, which means we can actually make these edits without reducing the image quality. And if we actually apply these presets, they will go back into Lightroom as a TIFF file. So overall, I'm not sure this is one that I would particularly use very much. I'm having spent most of my life shooting film. It's not something I particularly want to go back to. But if you're sort of interested in the film look and some of the film effects that we used to have back in the day, this might actually be quite useful. So let's cancel that and we'll go and have a look at the next one. So we'll close that without saving. And we'll go right click, edit in, and let's have a look at color effects this time. And we'll edit a copy with the Lightroom adjustments. We've got a very similar interface to the previous one, the analog effects, and we've got this again, this slider control, the presets on the left here. Nik Color Efex is color presets, so you can get various. It's not trying to give you the film look as the previous one was. It's just giving you color effects that we can add to our images. And for example, this one would be very, very useful. The clarity bump. If I slide the image across here, it's not made a hell of a lot of difference to the image. It's just bumped up that clarity a little bit and made it a much more sort of punchy image. So certainly I would use something like that. Classic portrait. Obviously that's designed for portrait photography. However, I actually quite like that as well. That's quite a nice look to the image. And we've got lots more different presets here. Lavender, very, very striking look to the image there, making the sky and a much more sort of purple looking image. Purple film, red rocks. There's lots of different presets here. And again, you've got your own controls over here. Let's pick one of these more dramatic presets. This is called Super Punch. And we can have a look at the controls over here. We've got this is obviously a bleach bypass style image. We can control the brightness, the saturation, contrast. Again, we've got these local adjustments here where we can, for example, do an elliptical mask over certain elements of the image. And this section here is contrast only, so we can control brightness within the contrast. And down here we have Pro Contrast, so this is correct the color cast. So we can swing the color a little bit left and right between sort of cooler and warmer. Correct the contrast. So we can bump the contrast up. Dynamic contrast. So lots of presets like we saw in the previous Nik plugin there. Certainly very controllable. This is certainly one that I would be quite interested in. Lots of different presets here, each of them giving you a very different look to the image and a very controllable look with all these controls over here. So let's cancel that one and we'll have a look at the next one. So the next one I want to have a look at is Silver Efex, and as you might imagine, that is a black and white plugin. It gives us lots of different styles of black and white image. So let's wait for that to open and have a look at what we can get out of that. And there we go. And again, they kept this nice uniformity to the actual interface. You've got the presets on the left and the controls on the right. Let's have a look at this version here. This is called Full Dynamic Harsh. And yeah, well, I like that. That's actually a really, really dramatic looking image. Compare it to the color version. So, and again, all these controls pop up over here again with the local adjustments. We've got the elliptical control, control line, we've got a polygon control, we've got a luminosity mask, and we've also, I believe, got a color mask. So lots and lots of control over it. Let's see what dynamic brightness does to the image. Okay, that brings up the brightness in the mid-tones and brings down the brightness in the mid-tones, giving us a very, very dramatic look to this image. I really like that actually. Let's have a look through a few more of these presets here. A dark sepia, a soft sepia. I've got some blue tone ones here. Let's have a look at those. Cool tone. That's very reminiscent of the printing that I used to do when I was younger. I could never really nail my printing ability. This is Cool Tone 2. Again, I think a very nice looking image from that. And it's added a bit of a border as if we've printed it straight out of the enlarger. So it's quite a nice little effect there. So yeah, I really like these Silver Efex. And I could certainly see myself using some of these. Sometimes editing in Lightroom or Photolab, it's just time consuming and you just want to get a quick effect to send something out on Instagram, social media post for sort of impact. And using something like these plugins certainly would help with that. So let's cancel that and we'll just have a look at the last one. And that is Viveza. So we'll edit in Nik 8 Viveza. And again, it's got that nice uniform look to the interface. And we've got presets here. This one is Golden Hour. I do like the speed in the way that these presets are added. It's pretty much instantaneous, which is great because you can scroll through very quickly and find a preset that you really like. That's really nice actually. That's called Remove Color Cast. My original image is quite cool and that's added a sort of bit of warmth to it. Sharpen Eyes, this would be more for a portrait style. It automatically opens the elliptical adjustment here, so you would place that over the eyes and make your adjustments that way. Warm It Up. Again, very, very nice. And cool it down. Not quite so many presets here. This is all about controlling the contrast within the image. So you've got a lot of controls over here. The global adjustments, the structure, for example, sort of adds sort of clarity and very similar to the dehaze in Lightroom. You can bring up shadow details here. You can add warmth. You've got selective tones down here. So overall, Viveza is probably sort of a less comprehensive than some of the other plugins. I can see that it does have its uses, particularly in adjusting contrast and saturation, warmth and stuff like that. But overall, I'm not sure I would use this one as much as some of the other ones. So that's a quick first look at Nik Plugins. The memories came flooding back. I remember the controls, the slider allowing you to see the before and after was one of the sort of iconic features of Nik Plugins. And I think DxO have done a nice job sort of pushing them and developing them. Now, if you're the sort of person that loves spending hours and hours in Lightroom or Photolab doing your own editing, Nik Plugins are probably not for you. But if you really want to get something out really quickly and develop a look and a style for each of your images, then they may well be useful. Black and white, I really was impressed with the Silver Efex. Sometimes getting black and white right in Photoshop or Lightroom can be really time consuming, and the many different plugins that you've got for Silver Efex was very, very useful, plus all the controls. All the other ones were also extremely useful. I don't see myself using them a lot. Silver Efex definitely. Color effects I would certainly use on a regular basis. But I think the primary target market here is perhaps newcomers and relatively inexperienced photographers that don't want to get into the learning curve of Lightroom or Photolab, that want to get quick results, quick striking results from their images. And these plugins really do that for you. Because of the fact you can actually push each of these plugins into your own look and then save it as your own preset, you can start developing your own style with these plugins. And that I think is a really powerful tool. So don't forget, I do have a 15% discount code on Nik Plugins. You'll find that in the description below. Let me know what you think about Nik Plugins. Did you use them back in the day? Do you remember them? Do you reminisce about them? Is it something that you would use today? Let me know that in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, of course, a like would be fantastic. A subscription would be better. And if you know any photographers that would find value in this video, please share it with them because it all helps the algorithm and helps me get more of these videos out. That said, I look forward to seeing you in the next one.